Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the Pride Lands to explore a question that has fascinated fans for decades. What is the true legacy of Scar? And how did it continue to haunt Simba long after Mufasa's shadow had seemingly passed? We all know the story of the Lion King, the tragic death of a noble king, the rise of a tyrannical usurper, and the triumphant return of the rightful heir. But the story doesn't just end with Scar's defeat. The scars he left on the Pride Lands, and more importantly, on Simba himself, run much deeper than we often realize. Let's start by looking at the immediate aftermath of Scar's reign. When Simba returns, he doesn't find the lush, vibrant home he remembers. He finds a wasteland. The herds have gone, the river is dried up, and the land is barren. This is Scar's most visible legacy: ecological devastation. His greed and mismanagement, driven by a desire to satisfy his hyena army, completely disrupted the delicate circle of life. He consumed without thought for renewal, a stark contrast to Mufasa's teachings about the balance between all living things. So, Simba's first major challenge as king isn't just sitting on the throne. It's a massive environmental restoration project. He has to heal the land itself, a task that likely took years of careful management and rebuilding trust with the other animal herds. But the physical scars are only half the story. The psychological damage is far more insidious. Think about Simba's upbringing. He spent his formative years in exile, living a problem-free philosophy with Timon and Pumbaa. Hakuna Matata was a coping mechanism, a way to suppress the immense trauma and guilt he felt over his father's death. He wasn't raised to be a king. He wasn't mentored by Mufasa on the intricacies of leadership, diplomacy, or the responsibilities of the crown. He was, in many ways, an emotionally stunted young adult, forced into the most powerful position in the land. This is where Scar's legacy truly casts a long shadow over Mufasa. Mufasa was preparing Simba to be a wise, compassionate ruler. Scar, by killing Mufasa and driving Simba away, stole that education. Simba had to learn on the job, and he carried the weight of not just his kingdom, but also the ghosts of the perfect king he felt he could never live up to. Mufasa became an idealized, almost mythical figure in Simba's mind. Every decision Simba made would be measured against the question, what would my father have done? This created an immense pressure, a constant fear of failure, and a deep-seated insecurity. We see this insecurity play out dramatically in the sequel, The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. Simba's relationship with his daughter, Kiara, is defined by fear and overprotection. Why? Because he sees the shadow of Scar in Kovu, an outsider raised by Scar's fanatical follower. Zirasima's judgment is clouded by his past trauma. He can't see Kovu for who he is. He only sees a potential threat, a reincarnation of the uncle who betrayed and destroyed his family. His mantra to Kiara, "We are one," is a beautiful sentiment, but his actions often contradict it. He's quick to distrust, to exile, and to prepare for war. He's reacting from a place of fear, the very fear Scar instilled in him as a cub. This is the core of Scar's psychological legacy. He didn't just murder a king. He planted seeds of distrust and paranoia that would last for a generation. He created a cycle of hate. Zira's entire existence is dedicated to avenging Scar, and she indoctrinates her children, including Kovu, into this same hateful ideology. The conflict in Simba's Pride isn't really a new war. It's the final, bitter chapter of Scar's war. The Outlanders are a direct consequence of Scar's reign and the loyalists he cultivated. Simba's inability to trust them is a direct consequence of Scar's betrayal. It takes Kiara, a new generation free from the direct trauma of Mufasa's death, to finally break the cycle. Her love for Kovu forces Simba to confront his own prejudice. Her famous line, "A wise king once told me, 'We are one.' I didn't understand him then. Now I do," is a direct challenge to Simba. She's holding up his own philosophy, inherited from Mufasa, and showing him how his fear, a product of Scar's legacy, is preventing him from truly living it. Kiara and Kovu's union isn't just a marriage. It's the symbolic healing of the wound Scar inflicted on the Pride Lands. It's the merging of the two fractured prides, finally putting the ghosts of the past to rest. So, when we look back, Scar's legacy is twofold. On one hand, It's a story of destruction, famine, and ecological collapse. But on the other, more profound hand, it's a legacy of trauma, fear, and a cycle of vengeance that nearly tore the kingdom apart a second time. Simba's journey wasn't just about taking his place on Pride Rock. It was a lifelong struggle to overcome the shadow of his uncle's evil and to finally step out from under the shadow of his father as perfection. He had to learn not to be the next Mufasa, but to be the first Simba, a king forged in fire and loss, who ultimately learned to rule with wisdom and forgiveness, not fear. It's a powerful reminder that the consequences of our actions, especially those born of hate and jealousy, Simba, the rightful heir, is driven into exile by his treacherous uncle, only to return and reclaim his throne. But what happens after the triumphant roar? Is it really as simple as happily ever after? The truth is Scar's reign, though relatively short, cast a shadow so long and so dark that it nearly suffocated the Pride Lands and continued to haunt Simba long after Scar was gone. This isn't just about a villain's defeat. It's about the difficult, painful process of healing a kingdom and a king from deep-seated trauma. Let's rewind to the beginning of Scar's rule. The moment Mufasa fell, everything changed. Scar didn't just take the throne. He fundamentally altered the philosophy of the monarchy. Mufasa ruled with a deep understanding of the circle of life, a principle of balance, respect, and sustainability. This is Scar's first and most tangible legacy: ecological disaster. Think about the monumental task ahead of Simba. This is Scar's first and most tangible legacy: ecological disaster. Think about the monumental task ahead of Simba. And he allied himself with the hyenas, a group that represented unchecked consumption and chaos. This wasn't just a political alliance. It was a symbolic rejection of everything Mufasa stood for. He allowed the hyenas to overhunt, to decimate the herds, and to shatter the very circle that sustained them. The lush green savannah turned into a barren, gray wasteland. This physical devastation was a direct mirror of the spiritual and social decay Scar had unleashed. He didn't just break the rules, he broke the world. So, when Simba returns, what does he actually inherit? He doesn't step back into the vibrant kingdom his father left behind. He inherits a wasteland. The herds are gone, the water sources are dried up, and the land itself is scarred and broken. This is Scar's first and most tangible legacy: ecological disaster. Think about the monumental task ahead of Simba. He's not just a king, he's a restoration project manager. He has to figure out how to bring back the animals, how to heal the land, and how to restore the delicate balance that his uncle so gleefully destroyed. The movie simplifies this with a magical, time-lapsed rainstorm that washes away the decay. But in reality, this kind of recovery would take generations. The famine, the drought, the displacement of entire species, these are the immediate life or death problems Simba has to solve. From day one, he's not just fighting the memory of a tyrant. He's fighting the very real consequences of his actions. But the physical damage is only half the story. The psychological and social damage is arguably even worse. Under Mufasa, the Pride Lands operated on trust, community, and a shared set of values. Under Scar, it was a society ruled by fear, division, and scarcity. He pitted lioness against hyena, creating a tense and hostile environment where everyone was looking out for themselves. Till lionesses, who were once proud and strong hunters, were reduced to desperate providers in a dying land, constantly under the watch of Scar and his hyena enforcers. This created a deep-seated trauma within the Pride. When Simba returns, he's not just returning to a broken landscape, but to a broken society. The trust is gone. The sense of community is shattered. How do you rebuild that? How do you convince a pride that has lived under a brutal dictator that the old ways of trust and cooperation can return? Simba has to become a symbol of hope, but he also has to be a leader who can heal these deep social wounds. He has to mend the fractures Scar created, not just between lions and hyenas, but within the lion pride itself. And this brings us to the most personal part of Scar's legacy: the shadow he cast over Simba himself. Scar didn't just take Simba's father and his kingdom. He took his innocence and his identity. For years, Simba lived with the crushing guilt that he was responsible for his father's death. This was Scar's most insidious lie, a psychological poison that festered for years. It drove him into exile and made him abandon his responsibilities. He adopted the Hakuna Matata philosophy, a carefree, no worries lifestyle, which was a direct coping mechanism to escape his trauma. He was running from his past, from his identity as a king, because Scar had made him believe that his identity was tied to shame and failure. When Nala finds him, he's not a king in waiting. He's a shell of his former self, terrified of the responsibility he was born for. The battle with Scar at the end isn't just a physical fight for the throne. It's a psychological battle for Simba's soul. When Simba finally forces Scar to admit the truth, that Scar killed Mufasa, it's the moment the spell is broken. It's the moment Simba is finally free from the lie that has defined his entire adult life. But does that freedom instantly make him a good king? Does it erase the years of trauma? Absolutely not. This is where the Lion King 2, Simba's pride, becomes so important. The sequel is, in many ways, all about dealing with the unresolved fallout from Scar's reign. We see a Simba who is now a king. But he's a king, ruled by paranoia and fear. He is haunted by the ghost of Scar. He is overprotective of his daughter Kiara, because he sees danger in every shadow. He can't trust anyone from the outside, especially not the outsiders, the lionesses, who remained loyal to Scar. This is Scar's legacy living on. Scar created such a deep wound of betrayal that Simba can't bring himself to trust again. He sees Scar in Kovu, a young lion who had nothing to do with Mufasa's death, but was raised in Scar's image. Simba's judgment is clouded by his past. He can't see Kovu for who he is. He only sees the heir of his enemy. It's Kiara, the new generation, who has to teach him the lesson that Mufasa once tried to teach. We are one. She has to break the cycle of hate and fear that Scar started, and that Simba, in his trauma, was perpetuating. This is the true, complex nature of Scar's legacy. It's a cycle of violence and distrust. Scar's actions didn't just end with him. A community defined by their bitterness and exile. And they created a version of Simba who, despite being a good-hearted ruler, was crippled by the trauma of his past. He won the physical war, but the psychological war continued to rage inside him and his kingdom. The story of Simba's pride is the story of finally, truly defeating Scar, not by fighting him, but by rejecting his philosophy of division. It's about forgiveness, integration, and breaking the cycle. When Kovu and the outsiders are accepted back into the Pride Lands, that is the moment Scar's legacy finally begins to die. It's the moment the kingdom chooses unity over division, healing over hatred. So when we look back at The Lion King, it's easy to see it as a simple story of good versus evil. But it's so much more than that. It's a powerful story about the long and difficult road to recovery. Scar's legacy wasn't just a pile of bones in the elephant graveyard. It was a poison that infected the land, the society, and the very heart of its king. Simba's true triumph wasn't just defeating Scar on Pride Rock. It was the lifelong journey of overcoming the shadow Scar cast, learning to trust again, and finally healing his kingdom and himself. It teaches us that the end of a conflict is not the end of the story. What other long-term impacts did Scar's reign have on the Pride Lands? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.